What you are seeing is a preview of the DK64 Recompiled program by Rainchus, Ballaam, and the DK64 Randomizer team. You will see some rendering and culling issues in the footage, which is why it hasn't been released yet. No editing tricks or cuts have been made to the gameplay footage you are about to see. Alright, morning and welcome. We are talking about the DK64 Recomp today. Joining me is Ballaam to answer some frequently asked questions that we've seen in the video over the last couple of weeks. Morning, Ballaam.
Morning.
Alright, let's start off with the first question here. Any way to see the progress of this online and be notified when it releases? So there currently is the DK64 Randomizer Discord, which is part of the team that is working on this. You can join at discord.dk64randomizer.com to check in on the progress, and then once the program is actually released, what you can do is you can join the N64 Recomp server, and there will be additional support for the Recomp at that point, as well as talk about mods. So we'll leave links to both in the description, and you can join those Discords there. All right, the next question is, hi, any release date the team have in mind?
Yeah, so the release date, we're thinking summer 2026, as kind of stated in a trailer. We don't want to go too specific on that because DK64 has a pretty bad tendency to throw a funny haha anytime that you try to do anything that's kind of very technical. So we want to leave it open enough to where we can be confident in reaching our goal, but not overpromise and then DK64 throws a spanner in the works.
All right, next question. Will this work on improving culling distance? I believe we are going to be doing that, but it will be included as a mod, ideally on the initial release of the Recomp. So look forward to having improved culling distance either right as the Recomp drops or very soon after.
Yeah, it's worth noting that in general, the kind of philosophy around Recomp is that the base Recomp itself should serve as kind of the core of what Recomp will be, and then any modifiers that kind of improve the gameplay experience, which is any way controversial, let's say, where someone might not want it, that's usually reserved for mods. So we will have some options available as native to the Recomp, but in terms of things like tag anywhere or like improved culling distance, that'll be reserved for a mod.
Yeah, and that kind of goes on to the next couple questions we have. I'll show 3 of them here. So switching Kongs on the fly, that is, in other words, tag anywhere. That is one of the mods that we're going to be including with it. Another one that we had was, did they fix Beaver Bother? Well, Bob, I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, so that one is, we implemented something very similar into Randomizer, and we get questions not to, we get quite a few questions saying that, hey, is there an option to disable this? So that one will be reserved for a mod as well.
Yeah, probably just like a general minigame improvement mod, because there's a few other minigames in there that are a little on the questionable side, I would say. A final thing that is probably destined for being a mod is this question here. Is this planned to be compatible with Archipelago?
Yeah, so what we're aiming to do is that we are aiming to release Randomizer, the general standalone Randomizer, after the initial release of Recomp. So it'll take some time to kind of get it ready and make sure that it works within our ecosystem. And we want to focus first on getting Recomp sorted first. And we are aiming to release Archipelago alongside Randomizer support.
All right, next question here. And actually, this is a pretty good question, surprisingly. Didn't the original already have widescreen available in the options? Yes, it did. But to kind of clarify, it was an anamorphic widescreen. And for those who don't know what that is, basically, it is a built-in widescreen that squishes the widescreen picture into the 4:3 CRT format. And then what happens is if you're outputting the game to a widescreen monitor, then you have to have the monitor itself stretch that image back out. That does account for some loss in quality of the picture if you do that, and in addition, it also stretches the UI out. So it's actually pretty ahead of its time if you think about N64 games back in the day, but and it's not ideal, and we intend to have the widescreen that we are building in. It will be able to adjust to most resolutions, most aspect ratios that you can throw at it. And something I do want to throw in there as well is that the original anamorphic widescreen on DK64 was locked to the 16:10 aspect ratio. We actually didn't know that until a few months ago. I'll throw who the name of the person we found on Reddit who found that out, but we found out it was locked to 16:10, which is why in most widescreen monitors it doesn't look right if you use the anamorphic widescreen.
Yeah, and to kind of further on that is that DK64 does that kind of widening within 4:3 in kind of a weird way in the grand scheme of things. So it adjusts what is called the field of view, and during certain scenarios it will kind of adjust what the field of view looks like, not just a static 16:10 that 2Dice is talking about. And so, for instance, if you enter a loading zone and then come out, it will start as kind of one aspect ratio, and then it will morph into another like a second or two later. And I think the same is also if you enter a tag barrel or other scenarios like that. So the way we are doing it is better in terms of quality.
All right, let's move on here. All right, this is actually another good question too, because if you have played DK64 on emulator before, you may have noticed like there have been saving problems occasionally, especially if your emulator is not set up right. So the question here is, if the PC port can support tag anywhere, does this mean it fixed the saving issue the game had on emulator? So the answer to that one, I think you would agree with me, Ballaam, is a resounding yes.
Yeah, that is very true. So can't speak. So yeah, that's true. DK64 uses a save type called 16K EEPROM. Most emulators default to 4, and so when it loads up DK64 with a hack it can't quite recognize for one reason or another, it defaults to 4, which means that the game can't save properly because it's got an incorrect save type in the back end. What we have done for most hacks is that we have provided kind of a list of setup steps of here's some changes you need to make it recognize the correct save type. What the PC port will do is you will not need any of that, because rather than having to have a stock emulator which needs to support hundreds and hundreds of games and hundreds of hacks, we only need to have this support DK64. So we can tell it from the off, anything that comes in, you're using 16K EEPROM and do everything to do with that.
All right, moving on to this question here. This was a pretty common one as well. What are the chances of an Android version? DK64 notoriously does not work well on Android when emulated, but I wonder if this could face similar challenges. So we are not going to be shipping this with Android support initially.
Yeah, we know that there's a large mobile base in terms of users, so we want to make sure that we are making our PC port appeal to the most users that there are out there. Android's a bit finicky, and I think almost every single N64 recomp doesn't naturally support Android. So there's some extra tweaks that we have to do afterwards, but it is on our to-do list.
All right, this one I did want to address here. This one's actually from the PC Gamer magazine article that we had written about the DK64 recomp. And I think it's important to address this one. There was some more to this comment, but the basically it was summarized with this question that we have on screen here. Are we supposed to accept that only the true clerics of Retroports can write the gospel of DK64? For a little background here, the article being referenced was basically questioning the use of using AI vibe coding to create recomps in general.
Yeah, so the answer to this is that we want everyone to kind of get into hacking and modding. The whole thing we have said with AI vibe coding is that vibe coding in general cannot correctly determine how to properly modify a game. AI tends to be very excessive with the changes it makes, and it doesn't fully understand what it is doing as much as some people want to think that it can work in some scenarios. In the context of N64, it really doesn't. And so what you end up with is that, yes, it might eventually get to the solution you want in terms of making a certain change, but there are kind of two main drawbacks of that. First of all is that with that change being made is that you don't understand how it's being done. And often it becomes very hard for maintainers such as modders and other people who want to improve the recomp, if there's any bug fixes or anything like that, it becomes really hard for them to understand and also maintain as well. So you end up with something which is called a lot of technical debt because of that. The other thing is that in the process of making that change, it could also change something else. So you might get something that is very unintended happening as a result of trying to fix something else. So we don't think that AI vibe coding is suited at all for N64 recomps, and the evidence has been proven with other vibe coded recomps in the past. We wholeheartedly believe that the way for N64 recomps is by focusing and knowing exactly what the code base is doing and making those exact changes.
One more thing I'll throw in as well here is that me and Ballaam have been working with this game for well over a decade now. We've played through it, beaten it, looked into every nook and cranny of this game thousands and thousands of times. If something is wrong, we know it's wrong, and we know that we can fix it. I believe that gives us the necessary qualifications to ensure to the player base that our release of the DK64 Recomp is going to be the highest quality and most accurate to the original game as possible. All right, final question here. Does this pass the Vine test?
Yes, it does. So the way in which we did this from a very, very surface level is that DK64 lags, and so it speeds up the Kong roughly based on how much it lags. There's a kind of a bit more technical explanation to this, but that's the kind of whole backing story to this. And so with Japes in particular, is surprisingly a bit of a laggy level in the main area of Japes. And so when you are walking through Japes, it causes a fair bit of lag. And so when you're playing on a system which is a bit more modern than the N64, it lags less, and so therefore DK misses the Vine inside his demo. So what we have done is we have done some very foolproof things to make sure that DK does not miss the Vine and that he carries along his merry way into the canon.
And then just to throw it in there as well, the other little cutscenes at the beginning of the game in the DK TV portion, those don't really have the same issues. It's really just the Vine one. But even if they did have issues, the fix we made would fix it all.
Yeah, and to kind of add on to that, into kind of branching with the changes that we're making, is that whilst we're obviously aiming for this to not have the lag of the N64 version, because lag is not really a good thing in kind of the context of modern gaming, the cutscenes and areas of the game which rely on lag to make it good, let's say, we are adjusting to make sure that it syncs up properly. So one of the important things is intro story. If you play that at full speed, not only does the music desync with the actual progress of like how the cutscene is going, but also you will run into bugs where DK will suddenly appear at the start of Hideout Helm and you can't actually watch the entire intro cutscene. So we have gone through and altered how the cutscene behaves in order to make sure that not only does the music sync with the visuals, but also that DK doesn't appear at the start of Helm midway through and block you from being able to finish the cutscene.
All right, and that is all the questions we had for now. Glad we are making some good progress here, and we will see you in the next update video. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
And as a bonus, please enjoy roughly 5 more minutes of bonus DK64 Recomp content.
Welcome to bonus stage.